Hey everyone, this is Ryder from Skip, and I have a quick and important video on the latest EIDL, PPP, and stimulus updates. Whether you've received any of that or not, I have some of the data and some of the latest news there. I'm also going to spend a few minutes talking about reopening, the reopening guidance in the past few days, what states are doing, and how to get more resources. So let's dive in. Thanks so much again. It's Saturday, May 30th. Hope you're doing well, and please subscribe. It means so much to us, so we continue to research and bring you the latest information as it changes daily. I'm going to start out by going over the reopening. Then at the end of this video, I'm going to share the latest EIDL, PPP, and stimulus data and information. But first, on the reopening, so I'm going to link to this in the description, but the U.S. Chamber of Commerce at uschamber.com is publishing information that they're updating. Looks like they updated this a week ago, but I assume that they will update at least once a week with information on what's reopening. Now, first, before I dive deep into some of these pages, I'm going to show you that the problem we're seeing is small businesses are being allowed to reopen, but the people aren't coming back yet for non-essential businesses. So this is a story by Time that shows obviously what we expected. There's going to be a lag in restoring consumer confidence, and that's the biggest issue, the biggest hurdle we face as a country and frankly globally, to balance being safe and going back to the way things were, but accepting the new normal and navigating that, because there's still so many questions, and infection rates are still going up in 15 states. This is the data yesterday. So by no means are we out of the woods. And with all of these protests, I would expect with these large gatherings that we may see, especially because this is in over 20 U.S. cities, these protests, we may perhaps see an increase in infections due to that. We'll see. I hope not. But here's a piece by Time that shows that, anyway, the main takeaway is, I'm going to scroll down here, that many businesses are still scraping by and living paycheck to paycheck and having a rough time. We know this. This is nothing new to any of us. It's just sharing that this is still the sentiment. This is a tattoo parlor in Georgia. And of course, not many people feel maybe that they really want to go out and get a tattoo yet. And there are also the new guidelines to basically keep people socially distanced within places like a tattoo parlor. So just goes to show you that we know this, but reopening is not going to be easy, and the struggle is still real in terms of the economic hardship for small businesses and individuals. And especially since it's the end of May, many of you are thinking, all right, I'm still waiting for relief. I haven't reopened, but I need to pay June rent. Maybe you got to deferred June rent, or you may have the option, but you're worried about July rent or mortgage. So those are the real difficulties that a good majority of people are facing. So we did a survey based on the 50,000 or so businesses that we've been helping, and 2/3 are still either closed or partially open, right? Only a third say that they are open, and some of those are online businesses too. But so let me just show you back to the Chamber of Commerce resources here. So they do quite a bit. Let me go back to the map here. So I'm going to just zoom into Florida here to show you what they show. It shows general workplace guidance on employee screening, social distancing, PPE requirements. So the social distancing guidance is what most businesses have adopted. Then, of course, it's a question of, is PPE going to be required? What are your cleaning and sanitation procedures? That's a big one for most businesses. They will need to have some process in place to ensure regular cleaning and sanitation. And what what is being done, if anything, to vulnerable populations. And then on top of the workplace guidance, there's sector-specific guidance. So, for example, retail in Florida, stores may operate at no more than 25% capacity. And restaurant, this is the restaurant guidance. Uh, Indoors needs to be 50% occupancy and social distancing guidelines enforced. And childcare remains open. So you can go through all of these. The reason I bring this up because I think it's a great resource that they're trying to keep up to date. We take a state like California that's partially open, and you can read more about the phase. Right, most states are taking the phased approach, but you can read about the phasing. Phase 2 in California now is reopening lower risk workplaces. So these includes retail with curbside pickup, manufacturing, offices when telework is not possible, and etc. And then some of the employee screening guidance, and social distancing guidance as well. So there's quite a bit, and you can go to your state and see what the latest is, because this is the biggest piece for you, whether you're an individual or small business, to understand what the latest regulations are. And they have also done, and I'll link to this as well, a playbook for your small business. So I'm just going to briefly scroll down here, but in short, have a plan, gather information and best practices. It starts with understanding what other states are doing. Prioritize safety, hygiene practices, social distancing, PPE, employee health monitoring. For example, I was in a nursing home a few weeks ago, and every time we left and came back, we had to get our temperature checked and do a detailed checklist that asks questions related to any possible symptoms and any possible exposure to people that may have been infected. So, and a lot of our other countries are doing that as well in terms of the temperature checking. Again, it doesn't help the asymptomatic problem, but it's something that is being thought of as an extra step in addition to social distancing, mask wearing, and hand washing. Okay, make a plan and communicate that plan. So these are general principles, but it's worth a read through. So I'm going to link to those, but if you are thinking about, you're balancing the relief funding and your individual and business finances, and you're thinking about how to reopen or how your workplace is reopening if you're not a business owner, this is helpful to read through. Now, I will say too, before I get into the data, that's the last thing I'm going to talk about, EIDL PPP data. If you want to support businesses, you can go to supportcovidrecovery.com. It redirects to our page on Skip here, supportcovidrecovery.com or helloskip.com/blog. Again, this is similar guidance to understand what to expect in your city or county. And a lot of these are state guidelines, but each city has its own purview to make their own rules. See how your local businesses are doing. We are going to start listing businesses on Skip, so you can also understand specifics of what they're doing to reopen, with the idea being that this will help rebuild confidence and wear a mask. So bottom line, if you want a mask, we're sending out Support COVID Recovery masks for free when you start a Skip Plus trial. So you can check that out on helloskip.com or supportcovidrecovery.com. And it means a lot to small businesses and allows us to do more to help them, which includes listing them on Skip and promoting that they are doing safe workplace practices. Okay, let's get into the data here. On Skip, we are helping people track 4 things: the EIDL Advance, EIDL Loan, Stimulus, and Unemployment. So one of those things likely applies to you. So, and they're free. You can link to all these on helloskip.com. Now, first I'm going to talk about the stimulus check. Okay, so this is good news. that 26% of our SCIP users have received their stimulus checks. We are doing self-reporting trends, so you can see when most people got them. So you see mid-April is when a lot of people got them. Then there was a second wave, beginning of May. It's kind of slow and steady now because we're in the phase of paper check distribution or debit card distribution, right? So we did a post earlier this week on our blog about many of you may be getting a debit card for your stimulus check. So look out for that. Another rule that was published this week was that if you received more than you should have gotten, you don't have to repay it. So basically, there is no, so if you get a check in the mail, by direct deposit or debit card, and you think, oh, I should have only gotten 1,000, but they gave me 1,200, that's great news. So that's an important note. For those of you still waiting, it's still coming. It's, you might have to wait weeks or months. With regards to the stimulus check, the second stimulus proposal, again, it's still being discussed. The latest bill, the HEROES Act, was passed in the House. I believe it's still being debated in the Senate. There will be something that comes down. It's a question of what will be in it. But again, because this is dragging and there is the possibility of another spike, obviously, in this coming winter, there's a lot that remains unknown. So while Mitch McConnell has said that this is going to be the last stimulus, we don't really know, what will happen. So things change as necessary. Okay, so that's a stimulus check. EIDL advances. Some more good news. It's what I predicted at the beginning of the week. 19% of SCIP users have received their advance. If you're tracking and you're wondering, hey, my tracker said 0 applications ahead of me for the last week. A lot of you have had that situation, unfortunately. It means that based on our data and the general first come, first serve principle, a loan officer should have your application. So you shouldn't be in the backlog. Now, there are many factors that would lead to you having to wait. So our best advice has always been give the SBA a quick call. A month ago, you would have to wait 1 to 2 hours on the phone. Now it's down to a few minutes. So it's worth giving them a call saying, hey, here's my application number. By the way, these are dummy numbers here to share as an example. So basically you could ask them to check your status, what's going on here. So feel free to do that. Now, we're also tracking the loan. The other news is that 8% of SCIP users have received their EIDL loan. Again, there's usually around a 3-week lag between getting your advance and getting a link to your loan portal. Last thing is the unemployment tracking. Again, this is an example. What we do show is the weekly applications in unemployment. And the reason we do this is to give you context into the problem, right? I mean, we know 1 out of 4 U.S. workers is now unemployed, which is terrible. And what this shows on a state by state, most states have the similar trend that there was a peak end of March, beginning of April. It kind of slowed. It has slowed. But in a few states, interestingly enough, we saw an uptick in applications last week. This was true in California, in Florida, and a few other states. So you can see all these trends. Many of you are still waiting for unemployment. Again, in speaking of black boxes, it is really difficult to understand what's happening. I mean, the SBA is one thing, but each state also has its own process, and they're working off of old software, so it's tough to know your status. But overall, things are moving. So I hope you can keep waiting and be optimistic that things will come through. And later this week, we're going to publish more loan options because we have a few new partners and insight into some loan providers for individuals and small businesses. So I'm going to share a video about that. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and hopefully you have a safe and healthy weekend. And if you can, try to stay home. If not, please wear a mask and be safe if you're outside. All right, take care.